So to start with, let me start with the Teradata architecture. Not Teradata architecture, it is data warehousing architecture. Okay. So we all know that the data warehousing is useful for the executive officers of each organization to do reporting, to analyze the data of the transactions. Okay. So after analyzing the data, they will take proper business oriented decisions which would be responsible for growth of the business. Okay. That is the data warehousing significance now in the industries. Okay. So how the data warehouse is built? So this data warehouse is built by extracting data from separate or different operational systems. Okay. So these operation systems may built on different platforms and may exist in different regions. Right? Let's suppose if we take a bank, okay, which is a multinational bank which has branches across the world, and each location has their own independent management and they have taken decisions in which systems they have to maintain their applications. Okay, let's suppose we have a bank like Citibank, okay, and Citibank is across the world, and these are three different branches of the Citibank, let's suppose. Okay, so we have operational data source in USA and operational data sources in Canada and in India, let's suppose. Okay, so in US, they might have implemented their applications on Oracle with Unix platform. In Canada, they may have implemented on SAP integration projects. Okay. In India, they may have implemented with the DB2 on mainframes. Okay, so it could happen. For a same organization, the applications may be implemented in different geographical regions on different heterogeneous platforms on RDBMS. Right? So as a company CEO, who is not specific to any region or any particular application, as a CEO of the organization, if I would like to know in last 10 years what is the product moved very fast, okay, which product has gained me more profits. So this is my business question, right? As a CEO, I would be interested in knowing which product has gained me more profit in last 10 years. Okay, is it a credit card, or is it a debit card, or is it a fixed deposit we launched, or is it a trading account I launched? So I would like to know which product has gained more profit for the organizations for the last 10 years. Okay. So then what I will do, I have to contact all the systems and I have to gather the information, and then I have to analyze it, which product is moving fast. Okay, so instead of doing all these tedious jobs, connecting each and every location managers and ask them to give their own product analysis and then consolidating, and then I will do my analysis to finding out the result. Okay, what they do generally, they will maintain a data warehouse. Right? So they extract data from all the different geographical regions, heterogeneous platforms, different RDBMS, and they do some processes called extraction, transformation, and then finally loading into the data warehouse. Okay. So which is the historical repository of the data of the entire organization. Okay, which is an enterprise data warehouse, okay, which is not dedicated to only a single application, single region, or a single platform. Okay, it extracts data from all the organizations, all the platforms, all the RDBMS, everything, and it will load to data warehouse through the processes called ETL, extraction, transformation, and propagation or loading. Okay, so once the data is moved here, the data warehouse, okay, several reports, several reporting tools, mining tools, decision support systems will connect to the data warehouse and they pull their reports for their analysis purpose. Okay, so this is the flow of the data from the source systems through the ETL processes to data warehouse, and from data warehouse different reporting tools, decision support tools, mining tools will connect to data warehouse and generate the reports. Okay, so if we observe at the operational systems, okay, we no need to keep the historical information. That means we keep at a time a period of data, a particular period of data. Let's suppose if it is a bank, okay, at the operational systems they maintain only 6 months of information. Okay, that's where if you ask for a 6 months of statement of your transactions, then they can provide us through online or through ATM, any channel. Okay, but if you ask for a 2 years of statement, then they will ask you to contact bank branch and give a written request so that they can connect to the data warehouse and pull their reports. Okay, so at the source systems, they don't maintain the whole historical information. They will maintain only the active information which is required to do the current transactions of the customers. Okay, so after 6 months they will archive the data and they will keep it in the analytical systems. The frequency could be anything. Every day they may pull the data and give to the warehousing, or every week, or maybe every month, or maybe quarterly, annually. Okay, based on the requirement, okay, based on the growth of the data, they may archive the data of source systems and they put it in the data warehousing applications. Okay, so here if you observe, there is no chance of hitting a performance issue, because after every period or after reaching a particular size of data, we archive the data and we keep it in data warehouse. Okay, and data warehousing is an historical system, okay, which gathers or which keeps data from different regions, different applications, and it keeps on increasing. Okay, the data in data warehouse keeps on increasing to hold the historical information of the whole organization. Okay, so here I don't have an opportunity to archive the old data, because the analysis all depends on the historical information only. Right? The business questions such as, okay, within the last 2 years, in which region this product has sold good. So such type of business questions to be answered with the historical information which we hold in data warehouse. Okay, so we don't have any chance of archiving data. So we have to have a sophisticated RDBMS to keep the data of the data warehouse. Okay, so now we will see, okay, what happens if I use a traditional RDBMS to keep my data warehousing data, and what are the problems, okay, and what is the solution. So let us try to see what happens if I keep my data warehousing data in a traditional RDBMS like Oracle DB2 or SQL Server. Okay, so most of the organizations has their data warehouses on the traditional RDBMS. Okay, so let's suppose the disk of the RDBMS server is associated with a processor of 3.5 gigahertz. Okay, let's suppose. And at the time of installation of the warehouse application, I have 1000 records in the system, and to process these 1000 records, I have my processor 3.5 gigahertz, and it takes 10 seconds to process all the 1000 records. Okay, so this is the scenario. Let's consider. As the number of customers grow, the number of transactions grow, the number of records would also grow in the organizations. So after 1 month, maybe these records has grown up to 10,000, right? Because it is a data warehouse, it is getting data from all the regions, all the platforms, from all the applications, right? So obviously the number of records would grow in data warehouse. So after 1 month, let's suppose the data has grown up to 10,000 records. Okay. So what is the time taken by the same processor to process 10,000 records now? Okay. It is not the same 10 seconds because the data has grown. Okay. It may take 100 seconds proportionally. So the processing time would also increase proportionally as long as the data grows. Right. So let's suppose after 5 months, it has grown up to 1 lakh records. So how much time it would take to process the same 1 lakh records? 1000 seconds. Okay, so when the system had 1000 records, I was able to generate a trending report within 10 seconds. Okay, so after 1 month, it has taken 100 seconds. After 5 months, it has taken 1000 seconds. Okay, what after some 2 years or 3 years? Data might have grown like this, and the processing time would also grow proportionally. So I have to wait for these many number of seconds to generate report on this particular data. Okay. So it is, for example, you have taken, so it could happen after 2 years, after 3 years, after 4 years. If we use a traditional system based on their performance and based on the growth of the data. Okay. At any particular point of time, the system may hit the issue of performance. Okay, so where they used to generate a report in 10 seconds, they might have to wait for some hours. Okay, and who is using the system? The executive users of the organization, okay, who are very much responsible to take critical decisions at proper time. Okay, if they don't take a proper decision on time, okay, it may lead into any risk. Right, so it is very much important for the executive users to take the decisions based on the reports generated on the warehouse, okay, within the time. But if we hit a performance issue, okay, they cannot continue their warehouse run on the traditional systems. Okay, so they hit the problem. Some of the organizations, the huge organizations which have lots of data, hit the problem in early 1990s. Okay, they had a problem. So for that, what is the solution? Okay, we cannot archive the data here because this is the historical system. We cannot archive the data. Okay, if we consider a bank, minimum of 12 years of data should be maintained as per the Basel rules. Okay, so they cannot do archival of historical information. So what is the solution? Okay, so the solution is given by Teradata. Okay, in early 1990s, okay, what they did, okay, they have invented a software called PDE, which is Parallel Database Extension. Okay, so this is a proprietary product of Teradata which they have invented, and by installing which on their own hardware system, the processor would start behaving as multiple processors. Okay, if I install this PDE software on the operating system of the Teradata, the processor would start behaving as multiple processors. Okay, and these processors are not hardware components of the processors, these are the software components of the processors, but which are capable of doing all the tasks which a hardware processor can do. So as these are the software components and can do all the processor tasks, this is called as a virtual processors. Okay, and at the same time, the hard disk, they would also start behaving as multiple disks. Okay, this disk is a software component, not the hardware component, okay, which can do all the tasks of a hardware disk. Okay, as this is the software component and can do all the tasks of a hard disk, it is called as a virtual disk. Okay, these are not actual components, these are the virtual components. Okay, and each virtual processor is associated with a virtual disk. Okay, so there is no cross sharing across a virtual processor and a disk. Okay, a virtual processor doesn't depend on any other virtual processor. A virtual disk doesn't depend on any other virtual disk. There is a specific association between a virtual processor and a virtual disk. Okay, and there is a mechanism in Teradata which share the data across all the available virtual disks, okay, which distributes the data across all the available virtual disks. So we had 1000 records initially, right? So let us run our example with 1000 records with 10 seconds, right? So let us have the same 1000 records in the disk here, and as per the Teradata mechanism, all these 1000 records should be distributed across all the virtual disks. So the data is distributed like this. The first virtual disk has 300 records of the 1000. and the second virtual disk has 350, and the third virtual disk has 350 records. And as this processor has the same capacity of the hardware component, how much time it would take to process 300 records of its associated virtual disk. Okay, by comparing it here, for 10,000 it is taking 10 seconds. So for 300 records, relatively it is 3 seconds. Okay, for the second virtual disk, we have 350 records. So the processing time by the second virtual processor is 3.5 seconds. And similarly, the third virtual disk also have 350 records. So the virtual processor takes 3.5 seconds. So what is the maximum time taken by all these virtual processors when they run parallelly on their associated virtual disks? Okay? Each virtual processor has no dependency on each other, so they work parallelly on their associated virtual disk and process all these 1000 records. So what is the time taken? Time taken is maximum time taken by all the virtual processors to process their own associated data. So the maximum time is 3.5 seconds. Okay. So earlier with the traditional system, if we compare, it was taking 10 seconds to process 1000 records, and with my Teradata system, now I have processed all 1000 records within 3.5 seconds. Okay. So how it is possible? Because of the parallelism implemented in the Teradata architecture. Okay, the parallelism is from the ground up, from the disk level, at the processor level, and at all different levels. So the parallelism is implemented in Teradata from ground up, and it is all possible with the software called the PDE, which enables the processor and disks behave as multiple components of virtual processors. Okay. So how much performance I got with my Teradata system now? Can I say almost 65 to 70%? Okay, so let us consider a minimum of 60% of performance I have gained with my Teradata system, okay, with this architecture. Okay, so if I'm happy with the traditional system up to 1 year, okay, so up to 1 year I'm happy, but after 1 year, because of the growth of the data, I'm not happy with the performance of the traditional systems. Okay, so here, as this is also have some limitations, okay, and it gains some performance, I will be happy up to maybe 60% more. That means maybe after up to 7 years or 6 years. Right? With my traditional system, I am happy with 1 year, and relatively I will be happy up to 7 years with my Teradata system. Okay, what happens after 7 years? So will I be happy to use my Teradata system after 7 years as it already hit a performance problem? No, I am not happy, right? So for this also, Teradata has given a solution. What is the solution? The solution is called scalability. It means you can go and purchase one more Teradata server, and you can plug in with the already existing system. Okay. So the existing system and the new system which is purchased is connected at both the levels, at disk level and at processor level. So now this is my entire Teradata system, which has 6 virtual processors and 6 virtual disks. Okay, now what I do, I will reboot my system after installation of the new system, so that all these 1000 records will be distributed across all these 6 available virtual disks. Okay, so now the distribution would happen like this: maybe 150 records here, 200 records, and again 150 records, and 150, 200, 150 in the new system also. So it is almost 1000 records, right? And it is a even distribution, you can say, almost even distribution. It is not exactly even distribution, but as per the possibility, the Teradata distribution mechanism will distribute the data almost evenly across all the available virtual disks. Okay, so now what is the time taken to process the same 1000 records with my system of 6 virtual processors and 6 virtual disks? So it is 1.5 seconds. To process 200 records, it takes 2 seconds. 150 records, again 1.5 seconds. So what is the maximum time taken to process the 1000 records with my new Teradata system of having 6 virtual processors? Is the maximum time is 2 seconds. So what is the performance gain I got here? It is almost 40%, shall I say? 3.5 to 2 seconds, right? So it is 40% gain I got. So if I add the systems, I could be happy for almost 3 more years minimum, or 4 more years maximum. Okay, so up to 11 years I'll be happy with the system. So what happens after 11 years? Yeah. Am I going to hit the same performance problem after 11 years? Because organizations are very much older. They can run some centuries, right? So it is not that I have to limit my performance for only 11 years. I have to scale my system maybe up to some centuries. So you can purchase one more Teradata system and connect and reboot after 11 years. Then you will gain your performance back. Okay, so this property of Teradata is called as scalability. Okay, so because of this parallelism and because of the scalability, all the organizations can be happy for number of centuries. Okay, there is no limitation in the scalability of the Teradata. You can go up to 4096 servers as of current configurations. Okay, and each node can maintain up to some 185 terabytes as per the current highest configuration of the Teradata system. Okay, so if you can connect 4096, it would be around some 800 petabytes of data it can maintain. So that is the capability of the Teradata system, where with the combination of parallelism and scalability, it can grow up to any size of data. Okay, and along with this data parallelism and the scalability, we have one more significant characteristic of Teradata called data protection. As we have these many number of components, okay, there may be a risk of failure of any of the component at any time. Okay, so in order to have this fault tolerance techniques, risk mitigation techniques, Teradata has implemented the data protection concepts for each and every component. Okay, so what happens when a virtual disk fails? What happens if a processor fails? Okay, what happens a complete node fails? Okay, for every level of loss or every level of component, we have a data protection technique. Okay, so data is very much important for the organizations, right? So which one is important for the organization? Is it the employee, or is it a software or hardware, or is it the data? Okay, so if it is an employee who is resigning, then he can recruit one more person and they can train them. If it is an hardware and software failure, they can purchase, because they have money, the organizations have money, they can purchase one more new hardware and software. But if they lose their data, anyone can provide the data with any cost? No, right? So data protection is very much important for the organizations. So they have implemented, the Teradata has implemented the data protection at any level of data failure. Okay. So these are the significant characteristics of Teradata, why organizations are moving their existing warehouses to the Teradata. That's where we have so many Teradata requirements, Teradata developer requirements, and as well as Teradata DBA requirements also. So as the companies are getting more licenses of Teradata, they need more developers, more administrators, more architects. Okay, so that's where people are very much keen to learn Teradata to grab new opportunities in the data warehousing industry. Okay. So we as BISP, okay, we teach the development track, okay, and we teach the DBA track also. Okay, this particular demonstration is for the DBA, so I would like to see more about the DBA topics. Okay, so in this course curriculum of plan, okay, first we will start with the Teradata introduction. Okay, so that's the same thing what we had just now. Okay, the introduction of the warehousing and how the Teradata is suitable for the warehousing. Okay, what are the characteristics of Teradata? Everything you see here, and then the Teradata architecture. Okay, what these all components are called as. Okay, technically we will learn okay, what all these components are named as and what are the responsibilities of each and every component, okay, how the communication is made across different architectural components, okay, everything we will observe in the Teradata architecture. Okay, and then the data distribution. Okay, you might have found how much important it is to distribute the data across all the virtual disks almost evenly. Right? If it is not even, then it won't gain the performance of the parallelism. Right? If let's suppose if all 1000 records are populated in a single virtual disk, so then this virtual processor would take 10 seconds, which is almost same as the traditional RDBMS system. Okay, so the data distribution is very much important in Teradata. Okay, so we'll see how this data distribution can be gained, okay, with the help of indexes. We have several indexes in Teradata, so we'll see the basic indexes like primary index, secondary index, partition index in this section of data distribution. And then we have data protection. As we have different components, different levels of components, okay, we may have failure of any component at any time. So how we are going to get the fault tolerance techniques at each level? We are going to see those techniques. And then in the DBA sessions, we don't go with basics of SQL. Okay, the basics of SQL are covered in Teradata development track, but in DBA sessions, we give you an introduction of Teradata extended SQL and the advanced OLAP functionalities of the SQL. Okay, so it is provided, I mean, it is better if you have the basic knowledge of the SQL before you touch the Teradata. Okay, if you are familiar with the basic SQL, then it's good, you can join the Teradata DBA session. Otherwise, we have to have a program, okay, which makes you enable with the basic SQL in the development track. Okay. So here in the DBA, we start with the comparisons of Teradata SQL with the ANSI SQL. What are the new in Teradata? What are the Teradata extensions? And what are the advanced OLAP functions in Teradata? Those parts we cover in the DBA curriculum. And then we start with the Teradata DBA basics. Okay, what is the database environment, the administration environment, what is the hierarchy, what are the tools available, okay, who are all called owners, parents, children's. Okay, all this DBA environment will go through here. Okay. And then we'll see user accounting and users accounts and accounting maintenance. Okay, we'll create users, but we have to give them the priorities. Okay, how the account priorities are assigned for the users. And then we'll see the data dictionaries, how a DBA can use the data dictionary views, the database catalogs, to monitor the performance of the systems, to monitor the accesses of the users, okay, how they maintain, okay, all these aspects with the help of the data dictionary views. And then we'll see how we can do the capacity management, which is the important role of a DBA, the application DBA. So who has to monitor the space utilization of the application or users, and they have to do a capacity management. Okay, what are the views available, what are the space terminologies we have to know. Okay, everything will cover the capacity management and planning. And then access rights, okay, how to provide rights. Okay, as a DBA, you will get more requests to provide accesses on some particular objects to particular users. So how do we maintain access rights, okay, how to grant and how to revoke, okay, and how to use views, system views, to identify what type of accesses are actually required and which are not required to the user, so that you can discuss with the users and you can revoke those accesses. Okay. How to inherit the rights, all those concepts we'll see in access rights. And then we have roles and profiles. Okay. So maintaining each user individually is a tedious job for Teradata. So from version 6, Teradata V2 R6 onwards, they have come up with a new concept called roles and profiles. Okay. So we'll see, okay, how efficiently we can manage the users and the accesses with the help of roles and profiles here in this topic. Okay. And we'll see security managements, okay, how to control the system accesses, okay, access control mechanism, and sometimes we may use views and macros also to control the accesses on the objects to the user. Every aspect of system security management we'll see in this topic. How we can restrict a set of users to log on to the system on a particular time. Okay, there may be some scenarios. Okay, if we do a system patches or system upgradations, okay, when Teradata comes and do the system upgradations, they ask all users not to log on to the systems. Okay, so we may request them, or we may do access prohibition for those users at that particular time of moment. Okay, so how we can do all these things, okay, we can cover in security management. And then workload management and priority schedulers. Okay, so there may be several levels of workloads which is coming on Teradata server. So we have to analyze, okay, what type of load to be given more priority, and this task, this particular task which is coming on the Teradata server, okay, to which workload it has to be aligned. Okay, so there may be different types of users. Okay, the batch loads going on the warehouse, or some users producing the reports. Okay, some developers are testing something on the servers. Okay, there are several types of users, so we have to give several types of categories of workloads for each and every user. So how we assign a workload by analyzing of the priority of their work, and how we maintain it. Okay, once we assign it, it is not final. Okay, after you assign it, it could be wrong also. So we have to monitor for some time, and we have to identify if it is assigned to a proper workload, or we have to change a particular task from one workload to another workload. So every management aspect of workload management will be described in this particular chapter. Okay, and then access logging and query logging. Okay, see what all objects are accessed by which users. Is it proper or not? How to see? We have to log each and every aspect of access in a log table. Then finally we will analyze it, and we will come up with a plan. Okay, these are all not proper accesses, so we have to communicate with those users, and we ask them to revoke it. And similar way, the query logging. Okay, what all objects are being accessed by or queried by which users. So what type of queries, and what is the time taken by each query. Is it within the threshold, or is it executing beyond the thresholds? Okay, is it taking more CPU? Is it taking more IOs? Okay, all the query related information is also can be logged in log tables by setting up of the DIPs. Okay, we'll see all aspects of access logging and query logging. Okay, query logging is also called as DBQL. If you already know about this terminology, okay, we call it as DBQL. And Teradata 13 they come up with PDCL also, which is the historical use of the queries on the objects. Okay, we'll see all those setting up of query logging, monitoring the query logging, and end query logging. Okay, all the aspects we'll see in this chapter. And then the performance monitor, which is a DBA tool with which we can monitor the current active sessions. We can see if any session is blocking any other user session. Okay, so that we can go to that particular session and see why it is blocking, and we can give the priorities, or we can degrade the priorities at that particular request or to entire session. Okay, and then we can see why this particular SQL is taking, at what step it is taking much time, so that we can ask them to optimize the queries and resubmit it again. So all this active session management, the performance management, can be done through the performance monitor called PIMA. Okay, and then here I would like you all go through the utilities, because utilities are detailedly covered in the developer curriculum. Okay, so each utility has their functionality, phases, execution, restartability, and limitations. They in detail in the development track, but in DBA it is enough to have a overview of all the utilities. What is the functionality? What is the limitation? So that you will be in a position to decide which utility to be used in what place. Okay, so we will be given introduction to all the possible utilities in Teradata, so that you will have more knowledge, okay, to decide which utility to be used at which situations. And then we have archive and restore, which is the common responsibility of the DBS. Okay, so we'll see how we can archive the objects, at what all levels we can archive the objects. Is it database level, is it table level, is it partition level, is it journal level? Okay, what all types of archives are available, and how we can restore the objects in case of requirement or in case of a request from the users. Okay, what all those situations when the DBA gets restore request, all the aspects, okay, the scripts we'll see in archive and restore. Okay, and then finally the viewpoint. Viewpoint is a new tool in Teradata. Okay, we'll see the demonstration of the viewpoint portlets. Okay, what all possibilities and what all actions we can perform through a viewpoint. Okay, so it is actually a combination of Pman, Teradata Manager, and TASM, Teradata Active System Management. So if we cover viewpoint, it is nothing but covering of all the Teradata tools. Okay, so we'll see the individual tools and we'll see the viewpoint, which is an integration of all the DBA tools in the new versions like Teradata 13.10 onwards. Okay, we'll see the viewpoint here. Okay, so all these aspects, user accounts, roles and profiles, capacity management, okay, everything can be done through SQLs and can be done through the Teradata Administrator tool. Okay, so for each and every aspect, we will see the queries and data dictionary views, and we will see how we can perform the same task through the Teradata Database Administrator. Okay, so it is enough to go through the Teradata Administrator. It is a graphical user interface where you can observe all the operations. Okay, but if you know internally what queries it would generate, okay, then it would be very much helpful to understand the internal mechanisms. Okay, so in my course actually, okay, I don't confine myself to go through only the tool, but I will give the SQLs also. Okay, what happens if I do all these tasks with the Teradata Administrator. Okay, so this is Teradata Admin. So this is the tool through which you can do all the regular Teradata Admin operations. Okay, so let's suppose if I have the database here and if I want all the views, it is just a button. I can see all the views. I can see all the tables. Okay, I can see the space related information. Okay, what is the space, what is the skew factors, everything you can see through Teradata Administrator, and with tools options I can do most of the Teradata DBA operations like creation of databases, tables, users, creation of profiles, roles, and modifying the existing profiles, roles, everything can do. So we will go through all these options and we will see the SQLs also. Okay. And once we learn all these DBA aspects, okay, we have the performance tuning. Okay, for every database, writing code is not a big thing, but writing the code in an optimized way is required, right? So we'll see what are the optimization techniques in writing a query, okay, how we can optimize already written queries, okay, how we can see the explain plans, how to find out for which columns we have to collect statistics, okay, what are the join strategies used in the joins, okay, and other types of indexes like join index, hash index, aggregate index, sparse index. Okay, all these are indexes in Teradata which are used to enhance the performance of the SQLs. Okay, we'll see all those techniques and we'll see different combinations of set and multi-set with unique primary index and non-unique primary index, okay, and several optimization techniques and best practices. Okay, so we have a document, okay, which would walk you through all the industry level best performance or best practices. Okay, we will go through that in this section, and it would be better if you know Unix also. Okay, it is better to know any one of the operating system in depth, not in depth, maybe at least the minimal basics, maybe mainframes or maybe Unix. Okay, but learning Unix is easy compared with mainframes, so we can have a Unix session which can give you a basic understanding of the commands, okay, and a general life cycle of the project, okay, which are optional actually. Okay, if you're already familiar with, it is optional for you, but as per the request, okay, we have added the operating system, and a general life cycle of the project where you will get a real-time project synopsis.